Hi everyone, Evelina from Arcadier here. Today on Inspire, we have Adam Broadway, founder of MarketplacePlatform.com, a website that deep dives into all things marketplace related with awesome articles about trends and insights as well as practical advice from thought leaders in the industry. Adam is also CEO of NearMe, an online marketplace builder. Hi Adam, great to have you.
Hi, Evelina. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So how'd you get involved in the marketplace scene?
Well, I guess for me, marketplaces have been around for a while, even before technology came in. I used to go to the local flea market and watch people open the boot of their cars to sell knickknacks and things. And I would be down to the flea market, the local marketplace, every other weekend to look for a bargain. So that concept of marketplace has always been with me in a practical, real world sense. Then, of course, online and the digital revolution, being very old, I was around before the internet. And when the internet hit and things like, oh, I shouldn't admit to this, but you had some file sharing, peer-to-peer file sharing services. And so the idea of a marketplace where you could go and put some files that might be music related and share
Maybe
those,
music related.
maybe they were just files, just zeros and ones all compressed into things that you could then share in this marketplace. And so, yeah, Napster and the like introduced us to this peer-to-peer world well before we had blockchain and other things that were peer-to-peer. So it's been around for a long time, nothing new, but certainly leveraging marketplaces has become quite a trend and definitely a shake-up for a lot of business models that traditionally walled gardens. You know, you could only get this product or service from going to this particular place, and marketplaces now open that up a little bit more.
Very much so. So, I mean, since you may or may not have been around for a while, how have online marketplaces changed since you first became involved in them?
Hmm. Well, the traditional marketplace was the old e-commerce one-to-many model. My store, lots of customers. And then we saw the many-to-many model, which is lots of buyers, lots of sellers, lots of guests, lots of hosts. And so the shift went from the traditional business catalyst type e-commerce, one shopping cart, Volution, Magento, all of those type of e-commerce platforms to things like eBay, Craigslist, and uh, job hunting sites, marketplaces. They sort of all sprung up, and many of them were built as a standalone product, like Airbnb and others. They built their own tech because there wasn't other solutions around. But just in the same way that e-commerce platforms, you wouldn't buy your own, you wouldn't build your own e-commerce platform. You would just use Shopify or Magento or Evolution or BigCommerce or Business Catalyst. Same with marketplaces, that technology is becoming so much more accessible and commoditized that anybody can now jump in and create a marketplace almost overnight with the technology. That's not to say they will succeed overnight. Very few do. But that's the big shift. I think the commoditization of the technology is the exciting part because it makes it accessible to anybody, not just technology people with big, massive amounts of money that's been spent on that technology.
So true, extremely true. So, I guess on that, now that marketplaces are becoming commoditized and way easier to create, how do you see marketplaces changing either cultures or communities or just the world in general?
Well, just like the internet has disrupted borders and opened up people's access to different cultures and ideologies and ideas and thoughts. And we've also seen it not just disrupt and bring people together, but also separate people. And you know, I just think it's torn down some walls and it's built some up as well. You know, anything could be used for good and evil. And I
Hmm.
think the accessibility to talent is one part of the marketplace vertical, like Upwork, Odesk, Elance, freelancer.com, TopTal, all of those human service type marketplaces have revolutionized the ability for us to access extremely talented people in different parts of the world that we wouldn't be able to uh, without those sorts of marketplaces. So it's definitely created a lot more opportunity and choice for people.
What would your biggest criticism of online marketplaces be and how they've changed the world?
Ooh, the biggest criticism is the idea of the race to the bottom. It's going to get, I just want the cheapest, fastest, bestest thing. Well, you can't get faster, better, cheaper. Often you can't, because you can pick two of those things. It's going to be faster and better, but not cheaper, or it's going to be cheaper and better, but not faster. Technology, of course, can give you faster, better, cheaper all day long. But when it is connected to human services and products and quality of service, then that race to the bottom is not great. You end up with subpar everything. And I think that's the negative side of marketplaces. And also, what happens is the idea of being a multi-schoollionaire by building this marketplace that's going to be the next Airbnb of X. People get I don't know, not disillusioned. They're under an illusion that it can be, yes, because the technology can be set up very quickly, that I can be the next Airbnb of X. And they come in with the mindset of mass market. I just want volume, and that's how I'll make my millions. Well, that's a very rare phenomenon. There's only one Facebook, there's only one Airbnb. These are one in a billion kind of businesses. So you've got to be a lot more strategic in your thinking and the way you approach. So don't go for the race to the bottom. That's, I think, one of the issues that marketplaces has brought up.
Yeah, I mean, they're not unicorns for no reason, right?
That's right.
So I guess on the subject of, the race to the bottom and these common kind of misconceptions that a lot of marketplace owners have, what do you think, or what do you see as the most common obstacles that marketplace owners have to, overcome in order to actually build an online marketplace?
Well, many go into building a marketplace opportunistically. I've got a tech team, therefore I can build something and I can disrupt something. Well, often it's not about how technically brilliant you are. It's more about how good at building a community you are, how much of a subject matter expert you are in the industry that you're going into, quote unquote, disrupt. And you've seen some examples of marketplaces that went into disrupt the commercial property leasing space. And they had awesome technology, a great business model, but fundamentally they couldn't change the minds of the landlords, the property owners, commercial property owners, and the agents, the commercial agents who would then put people in them. There's a very tight-knit group and a symbiotic relationship between the owners and the commercial property lease agents, which couldn't be disrupted. And so you've got to be realistic, subject matter expert, know your audience well, and not just think that technology is going to solve all the problems, because the customer experience overall needs to include things like, how do you answer the phone? Oh, you don't have a phone that people can call and talk to you and complain or ask a question about? How are you going to do follow-up? Not just an email blast, but outbound calls to that person, or sending swag, building your brand reputation around awesome customer experience and not just reliant on technology. So I think the obstacles for most entrepreneurs or wantrepreneurs, people that want to be an entrepreneur, is that they go in naively thinking that I've got a good technology, I've got a good tech team, I'm going to disrupt that industry. Well, I hope you learn that industry really, really well first. Maybe go and get a job and work in that industry from the bottom up for a year or two to understand it, how it works, connect with the movers and shakers in that industry, and then come up with a plan to execute on a disruptive marketplace technology solution.
Yeah, I mean, technology can only do so much. In the end, you're still running a business, so you have to understand the business itself. So awesome. So on the subject of understanding the community that you're in and the actual business, previously you've talked about communities of interest versus communities of practice. Can you touch more on this?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And the difference being is that think of a community of interest as my hobby. I'm interested in being a piano player, and so I practice now and then. A community of practice or a practitioner would be a concert pianist who has practiced and practiced and practiced and then continued to practice until they get at the top of their craft. And the same with a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or a developer. Anybody who is focused in on their career, and let's face it, we all might have 15 different careers in our lifespan these days. It's easy to swap and switch and learn other things. But the community of practice are the practitioners. The communities of interest are the hobbyists. And a good marketplace will have an overlap of both. You know, the community of interest here, community of practice here, and they may have some overlap because there will be people who want to connect with the practitioners, to get them, that it may be a marketplace that's connecting the experts, subject matter experts, with the people that aren't the experts who need expertise. I need a web designer. I'll go to a marketplace, find a web designer to build me a website. Well, I might get hooked and interested in doing that myself and go from needing someone to do that for me to getting them to train me to then becoming a practitioner and a good web designer myself, and I'll offer my skills back into the marketplace. So interest is the hobbyist. Practitioners are they're joined with an association often. They have letters after their name, or they've spent a good chunk of time becoming an expert in that craft. And I think communities of practice are the ones that marketplaces can make money in, and communities of interest are very difficult to make money in because nobody's really invested. It's like going to Craigslist to buy stuff when I feel like it. You know, it's a mass market approach. Obviously, Craigslist makes money. It's a really good proxy for identifying new and upcoming possible marketplaces to build, like Airbnb did, like Desks Near Me did, like a whole bunch of other people did. But yeah, you don't get that sense of loyalty or belonging or community as much as you do with a community of practice where people are truly invested. So
nice. So what do you think the key identifying factors are for saying it's a marketplace, or what are the, like, how can someone say this is definitely a community of practice?
Often when there's an association attached to it, you know, the American Institute of Certified Practicing Accountants, the architectural societies, people that have letters after their name, people who invest, you know, most of their time in that thing that they're doing. And practitioners are those whose livelihood depends on it often. So how do I make my money? Well, I could be an Uber community of practice. If that's how I make my money and income, and that's my sole purpose, is to be an awesome Uber driver and create a great experience for my passengers, there'd be a bunch of people that would fit that, and they'd be seen as a community of practice. There's others that do it part-time. It's just a side job. They can take it or leave it. That's more of a community of interest and kind of a sideline hobby versus I need this. I'm invested in it because it sustains me.
Nice. Okay, so following up on communities and kind of switching gears a little bit, how do communities and marketplace dynamics differ between enterprise marketplaces and startup marketplaces?
Great question. Enterprise versus startup. Well, we all want to be an enterprise. So our startups always start up hoping that one day we'll be as big as an enterprise. The benefit that an enterprise marketplace has is they often have the supply and demand already taken care of. They have channel partners, they have logistics supply chain already in place, whether that's through wholesale retail, they might be business to business, they might be business to consumer or customer, don't like that word consumer. They may be customer to customer. The enterprise has a ready-made opportunity with brand awareness, brand loyalty, hopefully, or at least brand equity, people know the brand, then they can turn on a marketplace reasonably easily. And we've had that experience actually with a number of Fortune 500 companies that have gone, you know what, we need a marketplace. We need to control the quality throughout our supply chain because our retailers are going off and it's the wild, wild west and our customers aren't getting a good quality experience all the way. And we need to control that by creating a marketplace right through the supply chain. Others are going, you know what, I'm paying too much for people placement agencies, and enterprise companies are going, yeah, wow, I'm spending so much money on placement agencies giving me temp workers. I'm going to create my own branded marketplace for temp workers. And we're seeing that happen with the enterprise. Whereas a startup doesn't have that luxury. they're starting from very few customers, no brand loyalty or even brand equity, or they got to start from zero. So it is tougher for the entrepreneur, but at the same time, what they don't have that the enterprise companies have is bureaucracy, politics, naysaying, risk aversion, shareholders and IPO restrictions that under FDIC rules might require them not to be able to move very quickly at all. And so a startup can come in and take over their market. Well, that's a case in point being Netflix with what they did to Blockbuster within 18 months. Netflix was built and presented to the Blockbuster board as, hey, this is a great way. This is a great way to get your content out. People won't go to the store very soon. They'll go online. I got laughed out of the place. 18 months later, a little startup bankrupted Blockbuster. So it can work both ways. But definitely enterprise has a bit of a leg up if they're innovative and they move fast. And some big companies have entire innovation teams focused on doing exactly that, so that they can think of the next 10, 20 years of longevity for their brand.
Very true and interesting. So I guess on the subject of making money, are there different monetization strategies best suited for specific types of marketplaces or communities, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think there is, and everybody's trying to figure that one out. It's a hard nut to crack, and what often people are finding is if you're working with a community of practice where you have practitioners involved in your marketplace, they're prepared to pay a subscription fee, which is a great model because everyone pays for access to the community, and those that aren't prepared to pay a subscription are usually community of interest people, hobbyists, who want everything for free and then want all the support in the world, and they cost your business. So communities of practice often have the ability to have a subscription model, which is very sustainable for your business. Others, of course, want to take a clip of the ticket. They want a transactional commission on the buyer side, on the host side, maybe a subscription as well. If you pay a subscription, we'll reduce the commission we take. Or if you pay a subscription, you get 10 free transactions that we don't charge or get involved with. And anything beyond that, there's so many different models to do. There's also the buying of points or credits to then apply, so that I'll buy 10 credits and every lead I get through the marketplace depletes my credits, sort of like paying for leads, but at a fair market rate, because they're going to have to pay AdWords or some other marketing company anyway to get those leads. So if you can build a content marketing strategy and a marketplace that draws a lot of interested demand for services, and the supply side are paying a small either subscription fee to participate, or they're buying credits for leads that may match, that's another model versus taking a clip of the transaction. Interestingly, marketplace owners themselves don't want the marketplace builders to get involved in their transactions. Shopify had a model, or has a model, where they'll take a percentage of the goods. So you don't pay them for hosting, they'll just take a percentage. But once you hit a certain number, it's like, whoa, look at all that commission going to Shopify. I think I'll use some other system now. And they'll go and either build it themselves or swap to something else. That model is not ideal. But it works in some cases, especially when people sit back and do the numbers and go, well, what are my AdWords going to cost me? What are my other marketing costs, direct mail and different ways of advertising, versus participating in this marketplace that's bringing me qualified leads all the time. And when they do the numbers, they go, oh, I'll go with the marketplace. Or no, that's too expensive.
Do you have a preference, or do you have which kind of strategy do you like the most? Personally, I do like the subscription model on the supply side, so that the suppliers do pay, because they're the practitioners often, they're reliant on the work to come through, and having a subscription model for them is usually fair. And that could be anything from $5 a month to $500 a month. It could be $5,000 a month. Depends on what the quality of the leads are that are coming through. For the demand side, usually you want to not have a barrier to entry.
How much friction can you put in place in front of your supplier or the demand side without turning them off? And that's the question that needs to be asked. And often free, you get exactly what you pay for, bad quality often. So sometimes the demand side is prepared to pay for access to high quality supply. And that could be goods or services or community or advice. So, there's people, products, places, projects. They're the three main categories that we've identified in marketplaces. And the demand side might be prepared to pay, but I think subscription model for the supplier side, where they're getting qualified demand leads, is a good model. It's a fair model.
Yeah. Any advice on how you would tell or suggest that people actually figure out their pricing for the subscription?
Yeah, that's another tough one. It's identifying. It's all about value and perceived value.
Yeah.
The community itself, just having 500 people who are jumping into a private chat or in a group. There's white label. You can have a white labeled Facebook. Forget Facebook. Get people out of Facebook as quickly as possible. Build your own version of Facebook in your marketplace. It's a time suck. It's going to distract people, and they have their own agenda. But if you can build that community and people go, wow, I'm connected with all these other experts and mentors, and I can even share my concerns or worries or ask questions in a safe environment with other practitioners or other suppliers, even if there's semi-competitive, there's enough work to go around where people within those communities are prepared to pay to access that just information. So it doesn't actually have to be that you've got goods and services as the lead coming through. If you're building community, the community is actually the top of the funnel, not the transaction. Often the marketplaces are built so that I'm ready to rent a dress. So I'll go to a dress renting marketplace. Well, what if I'm not ready to rent a dress, but I want to be part of a high-end fashion market community? And a dress rental marketplace builds a community around their transactional model. So they're getting all this amazing user-generated content, they're getting community, and then when it's time to transact, they would most likely transact within the community that they're a part of. And I think people forget that the community doesn't have to be Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or something. You can build your own community with white-labeled tools.
That's a really interesting point. So building your own community, already leveraging what you have along with user-generated content. So on that, what can marketplace owners leverage that they already have so they don't need to keep on investing more and more money, or at least invest less money or more wisely?
Well, data is probably one of the biggest things that people collect over time. And that is the gold in your gold mine. It's like every time someone clicks on something, every time that they purchase something or sign up and then drop off, there's data analytics tools that are used to identify the sales funnel and where people are failing to progress so that you can change that up, try A/B split tests and all of that stuff. An interesting thing that marketplaces have, which is different from your traditional one-to-many e-commerce model, is that you have network and link data. You have lots of buyers and lots of sellers, and hopefully community that you're building. And I'll share my screen. I'll just give you an example of something that we've built for that. So data, what can they do? Well, data is very powerful in a marketplace because what you have is network and link data. You have a buyer and a seller. You have a guest and a host. You have a friend and another friend. And if you're building community, what you're able to do with this data is identify who are the peer groups within your data. And so you're looking for peer group leaders and peer group spreaders. And with the right kinds of algorithms, you can identify these social graphs. And this is how Facebook works, right? They stuff into your activity feed what they think they can get away with to push you in a certain direction. Hopefully it's to click an ad. That's their monetization strategy, right? So it's a similar principle. It's like identifying what is the social graph for this person, where they are, who they are, and what are the attributes about them. But even if we don't know their gender, we don't know what their likes and dislikes are, purely from the network data of I liked you, you liked me back, we have a conversation. This time series data can then be analyzed to identify these peer group leaders, peer group spreaders, and then just the general participants. And what happens is we can then do predictive analytics using that time series data that every community marketplace has. It's just whether or not you're using it, and then do a prediction on who do we need to get a message to over what period of time to get maximum uptake or saturation of that message across multiple peer groups with the minimum effort. And so that's something that should be thought about for many marketplaces, particularly where you've got a lot of network and link data. It's how can you turn that data into results that feed back into your marketing efforts, at the very least identifying where tight-knit peer groups are so that people can, so that data can be moved into your CRM system. And so that when in the CRM data, if somebody rings up and they bring up somebody's record and it's Adam Broadway, and Adam Broadway has bought no products, has provided supposedly no value in the community because, well, at a transactional layer. But hang on, Adam is an influencer with all these people that collectively have brought in over $100,000 worth of business. Suddenly, the sales team will know that Adam's a useful person in the community because the data can be surfaced and used in the CRM tools, as well as the marketing tools for email or text or activity feed updates or Internet of Things device connectivity. Oh, Adam, you're connected with such and such, and they're not far from you right now. IoT is going to open up a whole new way that marketplace data and marketplace dynamics can interact with us in real time.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
So I'm very curious because right now we're looking at, little influencers or big influencers within a specific realm. But obviously right now there's also, all these like macro huge influencers in the world that use like Instagram. And then there's also these micro influencers that are also being touted quite a bit. What's your take on buying micro and macro influencers to help you and your business? Is it worth it? What do you think?
Well, I think you always throw as much spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks. So experiment. It's always about experiments, and things are changing so rapidly. What might have worked yesterday may not work today. And so the idea that email marketing still works, and it works well, and it works well in specific ways. Video, are people doing video like this? This is a great marketing medium right now. It's inexpensive. Anyone can do it. Instagram allows you to do it. You can do a quick, I can pull up my phone and do a quick, what's his name? Gary V. The master of self-promotion videos and all of that. But he knows how the generations, the various niches work and what medium works best for a particular given market. And it may be that you experiment as much as possible, because ultimately what you want to do is find out where your best customers are, not where the most customers are, unless they're all good payers, because you can find a lot of customers in a lot of places. But what's the return on investment that you're going to get? So if it's spending $50 per Google ad to get a high quality concierge customer onto your platform because you've got a marketplace that connects top 1%ers, the richest people with high-end concierge services, you'll pay that money for that customer acquisition, because in the long run it gives you a return on investment. Others, it's like, forget spending $1 on ads. I'm going to do it all organically by having a really good high-quality content marketing strategy. Again, anybody can do that. It's just about persistence and patience. And anyone who says you can be an overnight billionaire is lying to you. Or they're selling you something illegal. So it's always going to be hard work, and experimentation is the key. What have I found personally to be useful? Content marketing. That's been the most useful thing for us, and that's been very focused, high quality content. And we don't do a single bit of Google AdWords. We don't spend a cent on it. We also have a really awesome SEO strategy, and we've worked out how to get very high, front top page of Google on the keywords that we want to own. is a little bit of content, well, a lot of content, but a little bit of science on how the servers are configured. Making sure that you're also thinking about Google accelerated mobile pages. Is the site you're building today going to be future-proofed for tomorrow? Is it all built on APIs? Because if it's not, good luck in 3 years' time when everything is an app or an Internet of Things connection, or, hey, Alexa, find me the nearest web designer. Alexa, find me the nearest subject matter expert on legal advice. Alexa, book me a bike. It's just all going to be voice. Not all, but a lot of voice. And so you've got to think about that in the next few years as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was just talking to someone about how screens are going to become a little passe at some point, and everything is going to just be communicated through speaking. It's very interesting to see how quickly that changes.
Yeah, it's just going to keep changing quicker and quicker.
So just now you were talking about acquiring customers. So I think the next thing that everyone would be really interested in is what's your advice on retaining customers?
All right. Well, it depends on the marketplace that you're in, because often it's a one-hit wonder. You've got a house marketplace, and how many houses do you buy? Okay. What about your friends buying a house? If that marketplace provided an incredible service, that knowing that, look, I'm only going to probably sell you one house in your lifetime, but what about when you go to sell it? I hope you'd sell it through me again. So there's 2 sales. And what about your friends who want to buy or sell their home? So maybe you get 4 or 5 product sales from one person in a period of 10 years, 20, 30 years. That's one way to look at it. And the best way to keep people on the platform is just the best customer experience. And then identify who are your worst customers and fire them. Don't be scared to go for quality over quantity, because your quantity can actually bankrupt you. If you're just interested in quantity and your market economics don't make sense, it might be good because you're going to do a quick flip, and what you're doing is a pump and dump strategy. And that is, you're building up lots of users very quickly to show a nice little growth curve, so that some big enterprise goes, we better buy them because they're growing so fast. Well, that's one strategy. But if you're genuinely building a long-term marketplace, then making sure that the customer experience right through, from the way the website's designed, mobile app if you need it, the workflows that trigger behind the scenes, the phone calls that the customer support and customer service people are doing, if they're doing them. If somebody can call in, what's that like? What's the supply demand experience like? Are you qualifying the suppliers to make sure it is high quality? And if it's not, that's going to be a seriously big dent in the word of mouth, that people will say, yeah, that marketplace had a really terrible experience. Or are you making sure, and ratings and reviews, they'll help a bit, but getting on the phone and talking to everybody and building that reputation as a quality service is what's going to keep people coming back. And even for those big ticket items like a house or a luxury yacht, who are they going to tell? And what's word of mouth going to do? So it's all about awesome customer experience.
For sure. I think one of the key takeaways has been throughout this entire series is being customer focused and customer driven, and that you really need to understand it from their perspective.
Yeah, well, they've got so much choice now. Somebody comes up with a prettier looking website, and there's no loyalty unless you can build a community of practice where loyalty counts. Yeah, community of interest generally. Yeah, that's right. The community of practice is one of those. And if you can get that overlap, as I said before, between the community of interest and the community of practice to mentor the interested into practitioners, that's a really good life cycle.
Overlap.
Yep. I think there's a brand that, is it Gucci or something that has that little symbol? I don't know.
Something like that, like little. Okay, so what is one piece of advice that you would give to someone starting an online marketplace, besides knowing the industry? Like, what's one really key advice that you would like to give to everybody?
It's going to take 10 times longer and 10 times more money than you anticipated. That's a fact. Everybody goes in thinking, yeah, I can do this for no money at all. All right, great. Can you come and teach me? I will pay you to teach me how to do that. I seriously would. It always takes longer. It always takes more money. That's part of it. The other part is having the right team, because if you have the wrong team, it can destroy and that's the same for any business, right? The wrong people that are in the business can destroy it. And making sure that you have the terms of agreement between all of the interested parties in building this business are very clear on the onset. Making sure that there's specific goals defined, that you're very clear on your legal agreements between the parties of vesting, having a proper vesting schedule based on hitting goals, and all of that stuff. There's the practicalities of setting up the business as well, because I've seen the case where people have set up a business, a marketplace, and there's somebody who's pumping money into it, and the other parties are just getting this free ride, not adding a lot of value at all, and then they want to go off and take 50% of the business for not a lot of contribution. That's just naivety and stupidity on the business owner that gets duped by that. So, everybody's responsible for themselves, and you need to do your due diligence on your team members, but also account for more time and more money than you first thought.
Very true. Good advice. So one random question that I wanted to bring up, because I know that's been talked about a lot.
These have all been random.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. So there's been a lot of talk about using blockchain. I mean, blockchain right now is, word du jour. But there's been a lot of talk specifically within online marketplaces about using blockchain to build trust within the sharing economy and online marketplaces. What are your thoughts on this? Can you explain it to everyone here so they can kind of better understand what's going on?
Yeah, well, I think blockchain as a protocol is definitely going to revolutionize everything. Being able to know that the transaction you've just made or about to make is completely validated and verified by other peers and other nodes in the network that can give us the thumbs up for the veracity of that transaction or that contract, or the ownership of something. The authenticity of the transaction can be verifiable, and that's really important. And think of blockchain as just a protocol like SMTP, the simple mail transport protocol. It's sending messages all over the place. It's just that they're not they're centralized on a mail server or on your own personal computer. So there's no way to know that I've got a fake mail or not. But in terms of a protocol, blockchain is very powerful. So using blockchain in the context of the sharing economy is a natural progression for the sharing economy or marketplaces in general, particularly around trust, because my identity and who I am should be transportable. It shouldn't be owned by anyone. But at the same time, I should be able to determine what I share and what I keep based on the context of the interaction that I'm having. And so if blockchain is just this panacea, sort of like communism and socialism, the idea of it sounds fantastic. The ideology, it's great. There's fairness for everybody. In practice, it's failed dismally. There's not a country we've seen that successfully implemented communism or socialism. But the ideology sounds okay. It sounds good, promising. So in terms of blockchain, the idea sounds awesome, and it, in practical sense, is also great. But I also think that there's, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And by that, I mean, having a completely democratized marketplace where everything and everybody is connected, well, where are the specialists in that? And also, where's the brand customer experience going to ensure to be maintained? Because if everybody's just connected to everybody and I decentralize everything, what happens when the brakes on the car fail? What happens when the bike that I rented is got a flat tire, or the thing I ordered doesn't actually deliver? And they don't really care that they didn't send it either. They don't care about their reputation, even though this is supposed to create trust. That's where having a centralized model makes sure that there are checks and balances in the supply chain. And so blockchain, I think, actually creates the checks and balances and the trust. but then the business model on top may or may not be all distributed. It may be hybrid. I think that's what we'll see. I'll see a blockchain as a distributed way for maybe people's identity and trust and ratings and reviews. But then when it comes to the community, maybe there's certain areas that I don't want my conversations in my community of practice to be accessible, and I want that centralized, thanks very much. In fact, I'll pay money to make sure I guarantee that those conversations and my intellectual property is not disseminated. Oh, but that's not good socialism or communism. No, you're right. It's not, because we know that that has failed, and being part of the Borg mindset for some people, they don't want that. So I think choice is important. I think people are pushing for this sort of globalized view of everything and everything interconnected. But interestingly, there's just a handful of companies at the top of that who actually own everything anyway. So they're selling the ideology so that they can own even more. Conspiracy theorist, Adam, take off your tinfoil hat. All right. But blockchain, honestly, is revolutionary. It's going to have a massive impact. I think that the hybrid model of a centralized and decentralized marketplace, where certain parts are decentralized, but the central community can be maintained with a community of practice behind it, would be a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, it would be super cool. I mean, there's so many possibilities, and right now it's still kind of finding its feet. So it's very interesting to see how it ends up turning out.
Yep, there's performance issues around it as well, and all that. They'll solve that. It's just a technology problem to solve.
Yeah, just little bugs that need fixing. So I guess talking about the future and to kind of wrap up this talk, where do you see marketplaces heading in the future?
Well, I think blockchain is going to revolutionize the way that availability of people, products, places, projects, community is going to be disseminated. Trust being a part of that, and my ratings and reviews, though they can be gamed. And actually, I might be a really, really good Uber driver. I drive very safely, and I'm a 5-star Uber driver rating. And in that context, I'm great. But what about if you left your phone in my car and I steal it because I'm a kleptomaniac? 5-star rated driver, but I'm not trustworthy to hand back your stuff. Oh no, it wasn't in the car. So, am I really trustworthy in that context? So context is important. And I think in the future, we'll have more context around the interactions that take place between the marketplaces and the participants that in them. And blockchain will be part of that. And I think that voice, of course, and APIs everywhere, and interconnectedness and marketplace synergies, where you have content and products and services from many, many different marketplaces, all aggregated into one user experience. And the people that are going to win are the ones that own the operating systems, if you like. It's the ones that own the platforms on which these are built. And if blockchain is part of that dissemination, and that you can access everything, then it'll be what kind of customer experience can you put over the top of all of that data and accessibility to people, products, and places and projects that will then ultimately determine who wins or who is most trustworthy. So yeah, the future of marketplaces is just going to be more and more. A lot of enterprise companies are building marketplaces. I think we're going to see some of the big ones, like obviously we have Alibaba, and you have what's that one in China that big that everybody uses? WeChat.
Taobao? Oh, WeChat.
Yeah, WeChat, they're in China, and then in America you've got, or the rest of the world, you've got Facebook and Amazon and these big, big incumbents. I hope to see a lot more niche, very focused marketplaces that are going to spring out of it, and give us more choice. Because currently, I don't like this sort of coverall that we have from a few of the big players. I just want to see lots of high quality, a lot more high quality, let's get the middle class back into the economy.
Yeah.
Right now, they're gone.
I mean, I definitely think that that's both a goal of Near Me and Arcadier, is to, help those guys out and kind of create those smaller, more community-driven marketplaces.
Yep, spot on.
Well, on that subject, thank you very much for joining us with our community and agreeing to be a speaker and sharing all your very interesting thoughts and insights on marketplaces and your maybe conspiracy theories.
Well, thank you for having me, Evelina. It's been a pleasure. And Arcadier, big kudos to you guys for putting on this. This has been great, and I'm sure I'm looking forward to watching everybody else's content.
Thank you so much. So last thing is, how can viewers reach you if they have any questions or want to talk to you, they want to follow what you do or what your thoughts are? What's the best way for them to contact or follow you?
Sure. Well, I'll quickly share my screen because that's probably the easiest way to share that. Marketplace Platform, as you mentioned earlier, is a website that you can go, and I have to say hats off to my team, and in particular Julian, who is awesome at our marketing and putting together great content and working with other writers. So thanks, Julian. And Marketplace Platform is where you'll find us. You'll also find us over at, I'm on LinkedIn, so that's probably a good place to go. And please feel free to reach out, connect with me on LinkedIn, and we'll have a conversation. So very happy to give any thoughts and insights into what you might be doing with the marketplace, whether you're enterprise or mid-tier or products, services, community, whatever it might be. But this is me, so please feel free to reach out, and I don't discriminate when it comes to anybody who wants to connect with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Adam, for joining us, and thank you everyone for tuning in to today's session of Inspire. Until next time, be inspired.